My name is Linda Harper. I'm 55 years old. And last Thanksgiving, I watched my husband look at my sister the way he used to look at me. Before I tell you what happened, please subscribe to this channel. Stories like mine don't get talked about enough, especially when the betrayal doesn't look obvious at first. I've been married for 27 years. 27. That's longer than some people have been alive. My husband, Mark, is 58. He runs a small HVAC business here in Phoenix, Arizona. We built that company from scratch. I answered phones out of our laundry room in 2002 while folding towels and helping our son with homework. We weren't glamorous. We weren't Instagram worthy, but we were solid. Or at least I thought we were. My younger sister, Rachel, is 49. She's always been different, confident, loud, magnetic. I've always been quieter, more structured, the responsible one. Rachel got divorced 2 years ago. Her ex left her for someone younger. It shattered her, so I did what big sisters do. I invited her over. Every Sunday dinner, holidays, random Tuesdays when she felt lonely. I listened to her cry about betrayal. Irony is cruel. If you've ever opened your home to help someone heal, subscribe right now. Because sometimes healing someone else costs you more than you expect. At first, it was harmless. Rachel laughed at Mark's jokes. Mark offered to fix things at her condo. She'd text him about thermostat issues, HVAC questions, business advice. I didn't think twice. They were family. Then little things started happening. Mark started dressing better for Sunday dinners. He shaved on weekends. He started wearing cologne again. When I asked why, he laughed and said, "What? I can't look nice." Of course he could. But he hadn't cared about looking nice in years. Then came Thanksgiving. 23 people in my house, turkey in the oven, kids running through the hallway, football on the TV. I was in the kitchen basting the turkey when I heard Rachel's laugh from the living room. That laugh, the one she uses when she wants attention. I stepped into the doorway. Mark was sitting closer to her than necessary, their knees almost touching. She leaned in when she talked. He leaned into, and then I saw it. The look, it wasn't sexual. It was worse, it was admiration. The kind he used to give me when I walked into a room wearing a new dress. That night, after everyone left, I asked him directly, "Are you getting too close to Rachel?" He looked offended. "Are you serious? She's your sister." That answer should have reassured me. It didn't. Because his tone wasn't shocked, it was defensive. There's a difference. If you're picking up on subtle red flags in your own life, subscribe. Because ignoring them is how I ended up where I am. Over the next few months, their communication increased. Rachel would text him late at night. He started taking his phone into the bathroom. He changed his password. When I asked why, he said, "Business, privacy, 27 years of marriage, and now we need privacy." One evening, I walked past his office and heard him say softly, "You deserve better than what he did to you." His voice had warmth and tenderness. He used to speak to me like that. I didn't confront him. Not yet, because I needed proof. I checked the phone bill. Hundreds of texts, mostly late night, mostly between 10 p.m. and 1 a.m. I felt sick. But here's the thing. There were no hotel receipts, no credit card charges, no obvious affair, just emotional intimacy. And that might hurt more, because you can't scream cheating when there's no smoking gun. You just feel replaced. Rachel started coming over even when I wasn't home. Mark said he was helping her with business finances. One afternoon, I came home early. They were at the kitchen table, too close, laughing when they saw me. They both went quiet. Silence is louder than shouting. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every memory of the last year. Every time. I told Rachel, "You can always lean on us." Every time I told Mark, "Thank you for helping her." Did I create this? Did I hand deliver my own betrayal? If you're still listening, please subscribe. Because next, I'm going to tell you about the message that was sent to the wrong phone. And that's when everything exploded. But before I continue, tell me honestly, am I overreacting? Or do you think emotional cheating is just as damaging as physical cheating? Comment below. It was a Tuesday afternoon, nothing dramatic, nothing cinematic, just a regular day. I had left work early because I wasn't feeling well, headache, tight chest, that anxious feeling you can't quite name. Mark's phone was on the kitchen counter when I walked in. That alone was unusual. He normally carried it everywhere now, bathroom, garage. Even taking out the trash, it buzzed. I didn't mean to look. I really didn't. But the screen lit up and I saw her name, Rachel. The preview showed just one line. I can't stop thinking about last night. My body went cold, not angry, not screaming, just cold. If you've ever felt that kind of cold shock, you know it's different from jealousy. It's your nervous system realizing something before your brain catches up. I picked up the phone, did it? Wasn't locked. Maybe he forgot. Maybe he got careless. Or maybe he didn't think I had the courage to check. There were months of messages. Hundreds. Scrolling felt like falling down stairs. At first, it looked innocent. Work talk. HVAC advice. Did you eat today? How are you holding up? Then the tone shifted. You looked beautiful today. Wish we had more time. I haven't felt this understood in years. And then, the one that made my stomach drop. Being around you makes me feel alive again. Alive again. What does that make me? Dead weight. 27 years, 2 children, a mortgage, a business. And he feels alive with her? Please subscribe right now if you believe emotional betrayal cuts deeper than physical cheating. Because this wasn't about one night in a hotel. This was months of emotional intimacy. I kept reading. They talked about me. That's what hurt the most. She doesn't listen anymore. She's always tired. I feel invisible at home. Invisible? I answered his business calls at 11 p.m. for 15 years. I packed his lunches. I sat in emergency rooms with him when he tore his shoulder. Invisible. And then I saw it. A photo. Not explicit, but intimate. Rachel sitting at her condo, wine glass in hand. His reply. God, I wish I was there. Instead, that was it. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not shattered, cracked. Because a crack means it can split further. I didn't confront him right away. I waited. I placed the phone back exactly how it was. When he came home that evening, he kissed my cheek like nothing was wrong. Hey babe. Babe. That word felt foreign while I watched him during dinner. He smiled at his screen. He excused himself to take a business call. 27 years. And suddenly I'm competing with my own sister for my husband's emotional attention. If this story is hitting close to home, subscribe. Because the next part is where I stop being passive. At 9:30 p.m., I sent Rachel a message. From my phone. I saw everything. She responded in under a minute. That told me everything I needed to know. It's not what you think. The most overused sentence in betrayal history. I called her. She answered, breathing shaky. Linda, please. Is it physical? I asked. Silence, long enough to be an answer. No, she said finally. But it's not innocent either. Honesty hurts worse than lies sometimes. She said she didn't mean for it to happen. That she felt vulnerable after her divorce. That Mark understood her. Understood her. As if I haven't understood that man for almost 3 decades. I asked the question I never thought I'd have to ask my own sister. Do you love him? Another silence. I don't know. I hung up when Mark came back from the garage. I was sitting at the kitchen table, his phone in front of me. I know, I said. He froze. For a split second. Fear, then defensiveness. It's not an affair. I looked at him and said something I didn't even know I was capable of saying. You gave her the parts of you that used to belong to me. That's when he admitted it. He said he didn't plan for it to go this far. That it just happened. Nothing just happens over hundreds of messages. It's a choice, repeated, over and over. Asterisk if you're still watching, subscribe. Because ahead, I'm going to tell you what he asked me to accept. And it might shock you. But before I move on, tell me in the comments, would you consider this cheating? Or does it only count when it becomes physical? My name is Linda Harper. I'm 55 years old, and what my husband asked me to accept changed the way I see marriage forever. If you've been following this story, please subscribe, because what happened next is something I never thought I'd hear in my own kitchen. After I told Mark I knew about the messages, the house felt like it was holding its breath. He didn't deny it anymore. He didn't apologize either. He just looked tired, like I was the problem, like I was exhausting him by discovering the truth. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd signed loan documents, filled out FAFSA forms for our son, planned vacations. And then he said something that made my ears ring. I don't want to lose either of you. At first, I didn't understand what he meant. Either of us. I asked. He ran his hands over his face and said, I love you. You're my wife. You're my history. But Rachel, she makes me feel different. Different. That word again has. If stable, loyal, predictable love isn't enough anymore. If you believe long-term love shouldn't be punished for being steady, subscribe right now. Because this part is where I realized the rules of marriage had quietly changed. He said he wasn't planning to leave. He said he didn't want a divorce. He said he just needed space to figure out what he was feeling. And then came the sentence that still echoes in my mind. What if we redefine what marriage looks like? Redefine. After 27 years? I stared at him. Are you asking for an open marriage? I said. He didn't answer directly. He said he didn't want to blow up the family. He said he didn't want to choose, double quotes, choose, as if we were to job offers on a desk. As if I hadn't already been chosen at an altar in 1996. I felt something shift inside me in that moment. Not heartbreak, clarity. He wasn't confused. He was comfortable. Comfortable thinking I would adjust. Comfortable assuming I'd absorb the pain. Comfortable believing I'd stay. Because I always had. If this is resonating with you, subscribe. Because what I did next was something even I didn't expect. The next morning, I drove to Rachel's condo, no warning, no text. I knocked. She opened the door looking pale. Guilty. I'm not here to scream, I said. And I wasn't. I was done with emotional chaos. I just wanted truth. We sat on her couch. I asked her directly, if I walked away, would you take him? She didn't hesitate this time, double quotes, yes. That answer was like being pushed underwater. Not because she loved him, but because she was willing to build something on top of my wreckage. She said she didn't mean for it to happen, that it just grew, that they never planned it, that it wasn't physical. But emotional intimacy doesn't require a hotel room. It requires vulnerability. And they gave that to each other. I asked her one last question. Do you think he would ever trust you? If he can do this with you, he can do it to you. That made her quiet, because deep down, she knew. I left without yelling, without slamming doors, without drama, and that scared them more than if I had screamed. That night, Mark tried again. He said maybe we could go to therapy. He said maybe we could pause everything. Pause like feelings or Netflix shows you can resume later. I looked at him and said something I never thought I'd say. I won't compete for my own husband. Silence. He asked if I was leaving. And here's the truth. I didn't know. 27 years is not something you throw away overnight. But I also knew this. If I stayed without boundaries, I would slowly disappear. And I refused to disappear. Asterisk if you're still here, subscribe. Because next, I'm going to tell you about the family dinner where everything came out in front of our children. And that's when the real consequences started. Before I continue, let me ask you something honest. If your spouse asked to redefine your marriage after decades together, would you fight for it? Or would you walk away? Comment below. Asterisk. And the night I told my children what their father and my sister had done, something inside this family broke for good. If you've been following this story, please subscribe, because this part is where silence stopped protecting anyone. I didn't plan to tell the kids. I really did in single quotes. Our son, Tyler, is 26. Our daughter, Megan, is 23. They're adults. But in my mind, they're still the babies I held in hospital rooms. You never want to be the parent who shatters their image of stability. But secrets protect the wrong people. And I was done protecting him. It was Sunday dinner. Ironically, the same tradition that brought Rachel into our lives every week. This time, though, I didn't invite her. Mark noticed. Is Rachel coming? He asked casually. No, I said. Not tonight. He looked uneasy. That was the first time I saw fear in him. Tyler and Megan showed up around 6 p.m. We ate in almost painful silence. Forks against plates. No music. No small talk. Finally, Tyler said, "Okay, what's going on?" I looked at Mark. He stared at his plate. That told me everything, so I said it. Your father and your aunt have been having an emotional relationship behind my back. The room froze. Megan blinked like she misheard me. Tyler's jaw tightened instantly. What does that mean? Megan asked. I didn't sugarcoat it. It means they've been texting, confiding, crossing lines. Tyler turned to Mark. Is that true? Mark tried to frame it. It's not physical. Tyler stood up. That's not the question. If you've ever had to expose betrayal in front of your children, you know it's not about revenge. It's about reality. Subscribe if you believe truth matters more than comfort. Megan started crying. Not loud, just silent tears. She asked the one question I hadn't prepared for. Mom, are you leaving? That hit harder than anything else. Because now this wasn't about pride. It was about stability. Mark tried to shift blame. He said marriage is complicated. He said feelings change. He said sometimes people grow apart. Tyler, cut him off. You don't grow apart by texting Aunt Rachel at midnight. That was the moment Mark realized he wasn't controlling the narrative anymore. He looked at me, not angry, but exposed. I stayed calm. calmer than I've ever been in my life. I told the kids everything about the messages, about the redefining marriage conversation, about Rachel admitting she would take him. Megan wiped her tears and said something I'll never forget. Aunt Rachel sat in this house and hugged you. That's when the betrayal truly landed for them. Not as drama, but as disrespect. Tyler said he needed space from both of them both. That's when Mark snapped. So I'm just the villain now. No one answered. Because when you betray trust, you don't get to control how you're perceived. If this story feels real to you, subscribe. Because part 5 is where I made the final decision. After the kids left, the house felt hollow. Mark asked me quietly, "Did you have to tell them?" I looked at him and said something I had rehearsed in my head all week. I carried this alone long enough. He slept in the guest room that night. The next morning, I scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney. Not because I was 100% sure, but because I needed to know my options. And here's something no one tells you about long marriages. You don't leave because you hate the person. You leave because you finally love yourself more. Rachel tried calling that week. I didn't answer. She sent a message. "I never meant to hurt you. But intent doesn't erase impact." Mark asked if we could try therapy. And here's the complicated part. I didn't say no, not yet. Because walking away is simple in theory, complex in practice. Asterisk if you're still here, subscribe. Because ahead, I'm going to tell you what decision I made and whether I regret it. But before we go there, tell me honestly, was I wrong for telling the kids? Should I have handled it privately? Or did they deserve to know? Comment below. Asterisk. And after 27 years of marriage, I chose something I never thought I would. If you've stayed with me through this story, please subscribe. Because sometimes the hardest endings are the most important. Lessons. After I met with the divorce attorney, I sat in my car for almost 20 minutes before driving home. Not crying, not shaking, just thinking. The lawyer had laid everything out calmly. Assets, business valuation, the house, retirement accounts. Divorce after nearly 3 decades isn't emotional paperwork. It's financial surgery, and it changes everyone's future. When I walked into the house that evening, Mark was sitting at the kitchen table, same table, different energy. He looked smaller somehow. "I'll cut contact with her," he said immediately. No greeting, no transition, just desperation. "I'll block her. I'll go to therapy. I'll do whatever it takes." 3 weeks ago, he didn't want to choose. Now suddenly he could. That's what consequences do. If you believe people only change when they realize they might lose something, subscribe. Because this is where reality hit him. I asked him one question. If I hadn't found the messages, would you have stopped? He didn't answer. Silence is an answer? That's when I knew. The issue wasn't Rachel. It wasn't boredom. It wasn't midlife crisis. It was permission. He had given himself permission to emotionally detach from me, and once that door opens, you can't pretend it was an accident. Over the next month, we tried therapy, 3 sessions. The therapist asked hard questions about emotional neglect, about resentment, about unmet needs. Mark admitted he liked feeling admired again. He admitted Rachel made him feel seen. And then the therapist asked me something that shifted everything. "Linda, when did you stop feeling chosen?" Chosen, not loved, not needed, chosen. And I realized something painful. I had been slowly shrinking for years. Not because he pushed me, but because I adjusted to his moods, adjusted to business stress, adjusted to being the stable one. I became The background, reliable, predictable, safe, but not exciting. And instead of demanding partnership, I accepted crumbs. If this part feels uncomfortably familiar, subscribe. Because sometimes betrayal exposes what we've tolerated for too long. After the third therapy session, I told Mark one needed a weekend alone. I booked a small Airbnb in Sedona. Red rocks, quiet air, no history attached to the walls. I sat on the porch and asked myself the only question that mattered. If I stay, will I ever feel secure again? And the honest answer was no, not because he might physically cheat, but because something sacred had shifted. Trust isn't just about behavior, it's about safety. And I didn't feel safe anymore. When I came home Sunday evening, I told him, I'm filing for divorce. He didn't yell. He didn't beg. He just looked, stunned, like he truly believed I would absorb it like I always had. I said I'd fix it, he whispered, and I replied calmly, you wanted both of us. I choose myself. That was the first time in decades I felt powerful. Rachel hasn't spoken to me since. Tyler barely talks to his father, and Megan is still trying to process it. And yes, divorce at 55 is terrifying. Dating again. Scary, starting over. Overwhelming. But waking up without anxiety in my chest. Worth it. It's been 8 months now. The house is quieter, but it's peaceful, and peace is underrated. Do I miss him? Sometimes. Do I regret choosing myself? No, because love without loyalty is performance. And I'm too old to compete for my own husband. If you followed this entire story, please subscribe. Stories like mine don't end with fairy tales. They end with decisions. Now I want to ask you something honestly. Did I give up too soon? Should I have fought harder for 27 years of history? If you were in my place, would you have stayed? Or would you have walked away? Comment below. I'm reading every single one.